I was terrified of being replaceable. Not broke, replaceable. Have you ever poured a decade into building a thing and realized a man with your old coffee mug and a new girlfriend could erase you with one sentence? "Pack your desk," he said, loud enough for the glass wall to hear. What would you do if the boy you trained, now wearing his father's suit, told you his girlfriend handles operations now? Would you beg? Would you break? Or would you hand over your ID card, look him in the eye, and say, "You have 30 minutes before the fleet stops flying. Send your father my regards"? I didn't threaten sabotage. I didn't need to. The clock was already running, by their choice, not mine. Have you ever watched men confuse power with compliance and not notice the difference until the wheels stop turning? Liam smirked like I told a joke badly. Is that a threat, Maya? Threat. It's what they call a woman's warning when they don't understand its mercy. I said, it's policy, the one your father and I wrote after the Tanifa scare that made him swear we would never, ever dispatch out of compliance just to look busy. Behind him, Sloane, cheekbones, shoes, LinkedIn headline that said strategic disruptor, smiled with all her teeth. I handle operations now, she said, as if the word handle was a hand that could hold an entire 135 certificate. Then handle it, I said, sliding my badge across his desk. At noon, the EFB admin keys expire until an accountable executive signs the revision you ignored. No signature, no dispatch. That's not revolution, that's regulation. The room went quiet, the way rooms do when they finally realize what's humming isn't the AC, it's a countdown. Have you ever stood in the only quiet patch in a storm you built to save other people's lives and thought, I did this right? I did this right? Now watch it work. I didn't start with an empire. I started at a folding desk with a chipped mug that said dispatcher and a baby who slept in the break room because childcare is a math problem men don't have to solve. Mr. Harrington, the father, found me there at 2 a.m., swaddled fear in one arm, routes in the other. You run weather like a conductor, he said. You ever think bigger than flight plans? He didn't say, you're articulate, or touch your hair, or are you angry? Those seams where men stitch doubt into women like me. He said, come upstairs. Upstairs, I learned the parts of an aviation business most people never see. The way a crew schedule can ruin a marriage if you don't treat people like people. How a maintenance control board reads like a confession and a promise. What happens when an ops spec meets a human being at the worst minute of your life and you still have to decide? I'm a black woman, a single mom. Miles was 2 when his father decided internships in Austin required freedom from bedtime. You're so strong, people said, in that tone that sounds like admiration, but spends like complacency. Strong is not the job. Safety is. We grew from 8 jets to 43. We opened a second base. We became the 3rd largest charter operator in the region. I wrote manuals no one reads until they need them, and baked a rule into the system Mr. Harrington loved like a grandchild. No software, tool, or human pushes past compliance without 2 signatures: accountable executive and director of operations. I carried one title, he carried the other. When he got pneumonia last fall and stayed down, the board let his son sit in the chair to keep the name. Names don't fly planes. People do. Liam called me Mama Maya in the halls when he needed something approved fast. He called me combative when I asked for a second mechanic on line 3 at 2 a.m. The girlfriend showed up in March, Sloane, with a consulting deck and a swingy bag that cost more than 3 jump seats. We're bleeding opportunity, she told a room that bled overtime. We'll centralize ops. One dashboard. Simple. Simple is how you describe a sky you've never flown. She slid a resume that sparkled in the right places and blurred in the ones that mattered. Ops for a boutique carrier, 2 turboprops and a cousin. FAA liaison, took a POI to lunch. Mr. Harrington's lung collapsed again. Liam was named interim CEO. Sloan became VP Strategic Ops. Strategic is the word you put in a title when you want power without accountability. The keys I set in motion months earlier didn't care about any of that. We were due to roll from EFB V6.4 to V7.0 at noon. New revision, new digital keys, safety bulletins that needed acknowledgments. Without a signer with the right code and title, the tablets in every cockpit would fall out of compliance at 12.0000. Crews could keep their coffee warm, but not depart legally. I sent 3 memos. Sloan sent me a calendar invite to her launch party. They called me into the glass fishbowl at 11:24. I texted Miles' school. Pickup might be late. Big day. I walked into a woman's perfume and a man trying on his father's voice. "We're restructuring," Liam said, eyes not quite landing on mine. "Sloan's consolidating ops into strategic. Your role is redundant." Redundant. The word you use when a black woman builds the systems you depend on and you mistake your ability to stand on them for a reason to push her off. I didn't argue qualifications. I didn't point out that I'd taken 3 FAA audits from red pen to green in 16 months, that the 2 pilots who'd almost bent metal last winter still brought cookies to dispatch because I refused to turn them into cautionary tales. I asked one question. Who's signing the EFB revision at noon? Sloan tilted her head. It's automated. I smiled with my mouth, not my eyes. Compliance never is. Pack your desk, Liam said, a little louder, like volume could turn him into a leader. Security will collect your badge. I put my hands flat on the glass table between us so they wouldn't turn into wings. I'm not packable, I said, but here. I slid the ID across. And Liam, you have 30 minutes before the fleet stops flying. Send your father my regards. He laughed like boys do at a dare they don't understand. Empty threat noted. It isn't a threat, I said. It's a timestamp. You can fix it. Sign the revision with your actual title and call Priya in legal to witness. Or don't, but tell crew Sketch to hold push this afternoon because you won't have legal dispatch. I stood. Sloan smirked. Leave your laptop. I said, you should want me to. Primary admin is on my phone's YubiKey. You don't want me executing anything. She rolled her eyes. We'll have IT handle it. They can revoke my SSO. They can't grant you authority you don't have. Have you ever watched a woman realize the knife she brought to the fight is made of plastic? At 11:41, I was at my desk boxing the things you can carry. A plant from Miles's kindergarten, a photo of me and Mr. Harrington in hard hats the day Hangar 2 opened, the chipped dispatcher mug. My inbox lit like a runway. Captain Reyes, getting a pushback mismatch? EFB says update required. Can't ACK. Is this you? Dispatch lead. Why is Sloan in here asking how to generate a release? Maintenance control. Are we good to MEL item 23 for tail 741? The new app won't let us. My phone rang. Unknown DC area code. Miss Carter? This is POI Brooks, the FAA inspector assigned to our certificate. We got a system notification your EFB key exchange hasn't been acknowledged by the accountable executive. Should we expect a stand down? I could hear the question he didn't ask. Are you letting a pissing match turn into a safety issue? We have a governance hold, I said. Leadership change this morning. I'm no longer authorized to sign. I advised the CEO to execute the revision. If he doesn't, we will voluntarily stop departures until the acknowledgement is complete. That is a safety choice, not a labor action. My voice did not shake. It wanted to. Moms don't get to be the reason planes stop moving. But moms also don't send other people's kids into gray air without a map. Copy, Brooks said. Text me if anyone tries to depart in the gap. He gave me his cell like a life jacket. We'll be nearby. At 11:52, Priya from legal, sharp, sleepless, the last grown-up in most rooms, slid into my cubicle like a priest. "You're out?" she asked softly. I nodded. "He fired me." She shut her eyes for one beat like she'd seen the future, and it wasn't pretty. "He can't sign as accountable executive," she whispered. "The board minutes are in flux. Sloan doesn't have ops control authority. If you didn't exist, we'd have to invent you in the next 8 minutes. Then invent fast, or tell them the truth. Stop the pushes." "I already did," she tapped her phone. "Sloan is arguing we can assume constructive authority." "Assume a parachute," I muttered. Priya's lip did that not smile smart women wear at funerals for ideas. At 11:57, Liam called. "No hello. Fix it," he said. "The tablets are bricked." "They're not bricked. They're being good at their job. Sign the revision." Sloan says, "Sloan is not a signer." "You're doing this," he accused. "You're punishing me." "I am refusing to illegally dispatch 43 aircraft with expired keys so you can feel in charge." Silence. "This is extortion," he tried. "No," I said. "This is ethics." He hung up on me. Have you ever been accused of a crime by someone who doesn't recognize the law? At 12 p.m., the EFBs did what they were told to do 9 months and 2 memos ago. They expired their keys. Cockpits from Teterboro to Van Nuys flashed a polite red line. Update required. Authorization pending. Pushbacks paused. Tugs idled. Passengers did what passengers do. They checked watches and said the word unacceptable to people who don't set clocks. I handed security my laptop and walked toward the elevator with the kind of calm you only get when you're out of options and square with yourself. At 12:06, a black sedan took the handicap spot like an apology would be mailed later. Mr. Harrington got out with an oxygen cannula and the posture of a man who has decided this will be his last file. "Maya," he said, and my name felt like a reprieve. "They fired you?" I said, "They tried. The system didn't." He took my hand. "Walk." We walked straight past reception into the fishbowl. Sloan went white, as if disease were contagious only through inheritance. "Mr. Harrington," she began with that sugar that makes dentists rich. He held up a hand and she froze like he'd found her pause button. "Liam," he said, voice gentle the way a scalpel is after anesthesia. "What have you done?" Liam did what boys do when the room changes keys. He pointed. "She? No," his father said. "You." Priya stepped in, already with a folder open. "We have unsatisfied signatory requirements on the EFB revision, unauthorized representations to vendors, and a potential conflict of interest with a maintenance contract let to," she looked at Sloan, "Prime Aero Partners, whose owner of record is your brother." Sloan blinked. "It's arm's length." "It's fraud," Priya said, like reading a recipe. Mr. Harrington turned to me. "Can you fix it?" I could. I wouldn't without conditions. Have you ever had a man who made you offer you a chance to make him proud and felt the old part of you get loud, the one that still wants a gold star? I set my box down. "Yes," I said, "if you put it back the way we built it. You as accountable executive, me as director of ops, Priya as witness, a 24-hour stand down to scrub what's been touched, not for punishment, because the sky isn't a mood ring, and a board vote to remove conflicts before a single key turns." He closed his eyes, not in defeat, in gratitude. "Done," he said. We executed the revision in 6 minutes, because it was already written to work fast when you're honest. I hit acknowledge. Tablets woke up across the country like morning. I issued a voluntary 24-hour stand-down to catch what chaos always hides. A wayward MEL, a missed training sign-off, and 2 captains who needed a nap more than they needed a leg. I sent one line to every cockpit. We pause because safety is something we do on purpose. Captain Reyes wrote back a heart. That means something when you fly metal. It took the board 90 minutes to do what it should have done when Mr. Harrington first got sick. They removed Liam as interim CEO for cause. They placed Sloan on administrative leave pending investigation. Priya had her emails and a spreadsheet that sang like a choir. Mr. Harrington asked me into his office, the one with a framed photo of the first citation we flew and a crayon drawing Miles made of Mommy's plane that isn't technically accurate and still perfect. He looked tired and brighter than he'd looked in months. Maya, he said, be my COO, then be my CEO when I step down. I should have done it already. I let the last name get in the way. He winced. We did that to you. My throat burned with 10 years of almosts. I thought of being a black single mom walking into rooms where people ask you who watches your kid before they ask you about OpSpec A008. I thought of the way men say we're a family until you ask about equity. I thought of Miles's 4th grade concert and the way I missed This Little Light of Mine last spring because I was holding a jump seat worth of someone else's emergency. I said, I'll stabilize for 90 days. And his eyebrows went up. 90 days? Then I'm starting my firm, I said. Compliance and culture will help companies like this write guardrails that outlast the men who think they own the road. Put me on a retainer, Priya gets veto on work hours, and we put a mother's room in every base. If you want me as a permanent CEO after that, we'll talk when I'm not running on adrenaline. He smiled a real smile, the kind that belongs on Sunday mornings and first kisses. Retainer, he said. Mother's rooms and a board seat now, not later. He slid a folder across the desk. It was already drafted. The signature line left space for my hand. Also, he added, lighter, like he'd always wanted to, change the sign. We did the real work in the 24-hour pause. Priya unwound contracts. Manny walked every tale with a flashlight and a mechanic's contempt for pretty lies. I pulled rosters and gave 4 pilots a protected rest window that tasted like grace. We reset the EFBs, we re-offed the keys, we burned Sloan's unified dashboard to a thumb drive labeled Evidence. FQAA flagged 2 trends I'd been arguing to fix. Liam's SRO emails showed he told a captain to relax instead of reporting a TCAS RA because clients don't like paperwork. He liked sunglasses. He didn't like rules. The board liked rules that didn't get them sued. At 12:01 the next day, we started the fleet back up, 1 jet at a time. Releases reviewed by human eyes, mechanics who sleep at night, dispatchers who know what no is for. Clients grumbled until their pilots told them what standing straight feels like. Sloan tweeted and deleted. Liam called and left a voicemail that began, "You did this to me," and ended with, "I'm telling Dad," and I saved it in a folder named Reminders. 90 days later, I changed the email signature that had paid my rent and my pride for a decade to one word, principal. My company, Black Box, took on its first client, Harrington Air. Retainer signed, Priya on speed dial. Mr. Harrington wheeled into the hangar the morning we unveiled the new sign, Jordan and Daughter over the bay, because he insisted my name go first on something that wouldn't need a board vote to stay. Miles stood beside me holding a tiny socket set Manny bought him, solemn like a ring bearer. He didn't know he was witnessing an apology you can mount with lag bolts. Liam, he left town for a while. Sloan's prime arrow lost its customer and gained a subpoena. I didn't dance, I filed emails. The FAA thanked us for pausing on purpose. Captain Reyes baked me a pie. Dispatch framed the update required screenshot and hung it where new hires can see it. A little shrine to the day the system did exactly what we told it to. It stopped men who didn't know what acknowledge means from rolling other people's lives down a runway. Here's what I learned. You can fire a title, you can't fire a conscience. You can pay me off, you can't buy my keys. Being a black single mom in rooms like this means you practice explaining yourself less and proving yourself once, the right way, then living. When Liam told me to pack my desk for his girlfriend, I didn't argue my value to a boy who'd never had to earn his. I pointed at a clock I set 9 months ago with a pen and a policy and a man I respected, and I let time do what truth always does when you give it a system. It showed up right on schedule. If you're ever standing in a glass room with a badge in your hand and a man says you're redundant so his girlfriend can handle operations, ask yourself one question. Have I built something that protects strangers even if they throw me out? If the answer is yes, give him your card. Tell him how long he has before safety kicks in, and mean it. Don't gloat when the fleet goes still. Breathe. Call your kid's school and say you'll be there at 3. Answer the inspector's call. Set your price. Change a sign when you're ready. At my exit, I told him, "You have 30 minutes before the fleet stops flying. Send my father my regards." It sounded like bravado. It wasn't. It was mercy with a stopwatch. Some men hear that and think I'm the storm. I'm not. I'm the runway. I'm the policy that saved us from pretending planes can take off on vibes. And I'm the woman who teaches her son the thing no one teaches girls like me soon enough. Build the system you wish someone would hand you. Then, when they fire you for her, walk out with your head up and your work intact, because everything that matters will keep flying on your terms. I didn't dream of aviation. I fell into it like you fall into cold water. One gasp, then you either learn to move or you drown. Have you ever taken a job that wasn't your plan and watched it turn into the only place your brain makes sense? Dispatch hired me on a Tuesday because the night guy quit mid-shift, and I was the only one who could read a TAF without confusing it to poetry. It's babysitting, the supervisor said, like flights are just errands with altitudes. That first winter, I learned what grown men mutter into headsets when the crosswinds start to talk back. I learned that a hold at 7,000 feet can feel like silence on the ground, and that the silence is louder if your paycheck depends on pretending everything is fine. I learned the smell of coffee you didn't want, but took because the captain who brought it needed to say sorry without saying sorry. And I learned how to count time in 2 currencies. Minutes to wheels up and minutes to daycare pickup. I was 24, black, and a single mom because nobody tells boys that finding yourself shouldn't come at the cost of leaving someone else to find formula on sale at midnight. Miles was 2, light sleeper, Velcro laugh. I kept a pack and play under my desk for the nights my mom couldn't take him. People love to say, "You're so strong," like it's a tip you can put in the rent jar. Strength didn't keep an airplane inside its envelope. Systems did. Mr. Harrington, the father, not the son, found me at 2:07 a.m., charts spread like a map of bad ideas, baby asleep in a nest of spare fleece jackets. He didn't tisk. He didn't ask where the father was like I was a form he needed to fill out. He watched me ride 2 reroutes around ice, then pointed with 2 fingers at the sequence I'd built. "You run weather like a conductor," he said. "You ever think bigger than flight plans?" No one had asked me if I wanted to be more than a rubber stamp. I said, "Every day." He said, "Come upstairs." Upstairs was the first time I saw what an aviation business is. Moving metal and mistakes and marriages and egos, all of it stitched together by rules someone has to love enough to protect when they're inconvenient. He opened the operations manual like a hymnal. "Which page makes you angry?" he asked. I tapped 3. The duty time math that let managers steal a pilot's weekend by calling it flex. The MEL interpretation that shaved our margins on the wrong side because clients don't like delay codes. And the signatory process that relied on one man who liked to golf on Thursdays. "Fix them," he said, sliding the binder toward me. "But don't just wordsmith. Build me a guardrail I can't sweet-talk my way around." You ever have a man give you the knife and the bread at the same time? I rewrote the fatigue policy so it treated sleep like fuel instead of an afterthought. I fought for a second mechanic at our outstation so the graveyard shift wasn't just one human and a prayer. I pushed a voluntary ASA program for pilots and mechanics because I knew what confessions can do when they don't turn into punishment. "You're coddling them," one director sniffed. Then our ASA participation doubled, our FQA trends stopped hiding, and the guy who called me soft brought me cookies after we saved his leg with an honest report. We grew, from 8 jets to 20 to 30 to 43, a second base, then another. Mr. Harrington let me build dispatch into a spine instead of a switchboard. "Write it like you're going to have to defend it to a mad mother," he said, which is exactly how I wrote it, for the day someone's kid didn't come home and I had to look her in the eye with more than "we did our best." And then the day that taught me I was right to be a menace about signatures. Tenerife on the training video, the story every dispatcher learns like a parable. 2 747s, fog, miscommunication, 583 souls. We weren't a 1-2-1 carrier, but weight is weight, speed is speed, humans are humans. I wrote a policy Mr. Harrington signed with a pen that didn't shake. No tool, paper, software, or person will move an aircraft from ground to sky without 2 live acknowledgments, the accountable executive and the director of operations. Not as-if authority, not constructive. Their names, coded, time-stamped. We call it the double tap, I told crews, trying to make compliance sound like safety instead of bureaucracy. If I get hit by a bus, the next person can pick up the pen. If he's golfing, we wait. People rolled their eyes. Then the lightning season hit, and waiting saved us 3 times in 2 weeks. I am a black woman in a room that prefers its safety to look like a certain kind of dad. I learned to absorb the compliments that were really leashes. "You're so articulate," when I'd just finished drawing a flowchart so clean an FAA inspector took a photo. "You're basically family," when I'd worked 68 hours in 5 days. "You're a natural," when I'd fought like hell for 2 mechanics in a nap pod. You know the difference between a pat and a push? The pat is for you. The push is for them. I stayed for the push, and because of money. Miles's shoes don't care about corporate mottos. I said yes to overtime like it was Halloween. I learned schedules are made of dominoes and dinners are made of apologies. "I'll listen to the recital on FaceTime," I told my son once, and cried in a bathroom because I missed This Little Light of Mine for a line check. Then Mr. Harrington got pneumonia last fall and didn't bounce. The board, mostly men whose names are on golf carts, named his son, Liam, interim CEO to steady the brand. Liam was 32, charming in the way airport restaurants try to be Italian. He wore his father's suits like a borrowed language. He called me Mama Maya when he needed an ops spec explained at 2 a.m., and combative when I said we needed a second set of eyes on an MEL he didn't understand. "Chill," he texted me after a TCAS RA. "Clients don't like paperwork." Clients don't like funerals either. In March, Sloan arrived. Shoes that clicked fast, a presentation that said Synergy in a font that thinks white space is a credential. "We're bleeding opportunity," she announced, to a room that bled overtime. "Decentralized ops is killing you. One dashboard to rule them all." I could feel dispatch stiffen. Pilots don't like being ruled. They like being listened to through weather you've never flown. Her resume sparkled. VP Strategic Ops at a boutique carrier. I called a friend. 2 turboprops and a cousin. FAA liaison, her LinkedIn flexed. She'd taken a POI to lunch. "You ever taste a CV and know it's all frosting?" Mr. Harrington came back once, pale, breathing like it hurt. He tapped the double tap clause in the manual I wrote. "Protect this," he said, and I nodded like I was swearing on something holy. We were already scheduled to roll our EFBs from V6.4 to V7.0 at noon on June 14th, today. New software meant a new operations manual revision, meant a fresh acknowledgement in the EFB admin, meant every tablet in every cockpit would reach for a key at exactly 12:00:00 and refuse to generate a legal release without it. I drafted the revision in January, I routed it in February. I sent one email in March, one in April, and a final reminder in May. 2 signatures required to execute June EFB update. No signature, no dispatch. I put those words in bold. I copied Priya in legal. I stamped it with the kind of politeness you can weaponize in court if you have to. Sloan scheduled her Unified Ops launch party at noon on June 14th. Champagne in the hangar, the invite chirped, like safety belongs on a balloon arch. And this is the part I'm not proud of, but I won't lie about. I was ready for it. Not to flex, to protect. Because when a woman like me gets replaced by a woman like her, there's usually a man between us who calls both of us girls when we make him feel small. I wasn't going to argue on LinkedIn about stewardship and governance. I wasn't going to shout about decades and diapers and razor-thin fuel calculations that kept someone's dad out of a cornfield over Tulsa. I was going to let the rule do what rules do if you write them right. Stand still while the rest of the room trips over what it doesn't know. At 11:08 this morning, I got the calendar invite. Restructuring meeting, 11:30, boardroom. At 11:10, Captain Reyes sent a sunrise photo from Teterboro. Big day, proud of you. At 11:14, daycare pinged. Miles has a library fine. I smiled. Real life has the best timing. At 11:24, I walked into a glass box that smelled like someone else's perfume and watched a boy try on his father's jaw. We're consolidating ops under strategic, he said, as if the word strategic could get a plane off a runway. Sloan folded her arms. Her watch flashed a text I could read from across the room. Champagne chilled? Have you ever felt your entire decade sit down at the end of the table and cross its legs like, we'll see how this goes? They said redundant. They said we value your contributions. They said we'll be in touch. I said nothing until they tried to hand me a separation agreement I could feel had claws in the margins. Who's signing the EFB revision at noon? I asked. Sloan laughed, soft. It's automated. Compliance never is, I said, and slid my badge across the glass with a hand that did not shake. You have 30 minutes before the fleet stops flying. Send your father my regards. I didn't say it to sound cinematic. I said it because 100 crews were going to stare at a red line in exactly 30